Welcome to the Football Unfiltered podcast. I'm Callum and I'm joined by my football wingman Liam, who's going to be with me throughout this whole process.
We'll bring you coverage once a week from all English competitions.
So, Liam, where to begin?
But let's go through the weekly news throughout the Football League this week. So we got Neil Harris leaving Millwall after calling Millwall fans thickos.
Mate, if I'm being brutally honest, that is the worst thing you can do as a manager. I get he's got a bit of a reputation, but like, come on now, that's not a great thing to be calling your own fans off. You've been there quite a while, in fact.
Yeah, but it seems like it's quite an amicable decision though, because he's obviously not gone straight away. He's still got tomorrow's game, and then he'll be departing Millwall.
Yeah, mate, but if I'm being honest, I think it's a weird decision from both parties. Like, I get they've not had the greatest of starts, but at the beginning of the season, they can't have been looking really for much more than what they're really achieving. They're smack bang in the middle of the table. They're never going to get in that playoff position. They're never going to get promoted to the Prem. So, like, you kind of this swings and roundabouts at the end of the day. You can't really expect much more than what they're kind of having.
Yeah, I agree. They've been on. They started off so strongly. Um, they started the season so strong, and then they've hit a massive decline now, and they're starting to drop quite
That's yeah,
drastically.
yeah.
Um,
That's fair enough as well. I would say one thing from I did Millwall this season, so I've been up there, I've experienced it. That the fans aren't behind the club, and that's when you kind of, as a manager, you probably feel that you do need to step away. When the fans lose trust, then it's kind of a lost cause at that point anyway. And obviously, being a Plymouth fan, we weren't expecting much going to the Den, but we gave them a better fought battle than what most teams probably have this season, and that's for them. They're probably embarrassed by that. But then the game after us, or two games after that, they turned over Burnley. So it's like they've had a proper up and down start. Yet now they've sacked Neil Harris. So it's a bit of an odd one for me personally.
mm,
Um,
I don't think it was really a sacking. I think
it was me.
I
It was
don't.
it was more
I
both
would
of them.
say
Yeah,
it was more Neil Harris knew that he had messed up, and I
yeah.
think it just looked bad on the club. For
Both parties kind of agreed, didn't they? It was one of
yeah,
those where they've not had a great start, not really pushed for what they wanted. But like I say, I think mid table's probably a fair justice for them. But
yeah, definitely. I
yeah,
think they're strong outfit this year, and I think
uh,
they'll definitely be in the mid table or pushing possibly
yeah,
top half.
yeah. I agree. I think off Millwall, I think we're moving on to another manager, which is probably not having the best of weeks this week. Is O'Neill at Wolves? I don't know what your opinions are, but I don't think personally he's had the best of times this season at Wolves, let alone recently, because obviously being booed by his own fans, singing "You're getting sacked in the morning." That's never a great sign, is it?
No, but I think in a lot of games this season they've been really unlucky. I do. There's been games where they've played some really good football, and I like O'Neill as a manager. Obviously, Monday night was a massive blow for Wolves. They needed to pick up at least a point, um, but they come into a run of fixtures where they've got Ipswich tomorrow and then Leicester. They're
Yeah,
two massive games for them.
yeah, I agree completely. I do think, like, looking at O'Neill's run at the club, especially this season. We talk about this season quite a lot, but they're one of those teams that they never seem to get a decent run of fixtures. They always seem to have a big team here, a big team there, which is fair enough for a team like Wolves, because they're not obviously going to have ever an easy run of being bottom three teams week in, week out. But they always seem to have a low mid table side, and then they've got a top six side. They never get those low mid table sides in a row, which is
Yeah,
always
I
luck of the draw. But
I get that, but their last two fixtures are Everton, who are in and around them. They suffer a 4-0 defeat.
yeah,
West Ham in and around them, they lose. They've
that
got to win
is
these
yeah,
next two.
that
This will
is
decide his fate, really.
100%. I agree. I think that the last two have sold it massively for me. I was always Team O'Neill. Really, if I'm being brutally honest, like a big football fan. I've had a look with you, obviously, through every single fixture, every single league, really, in English football. And O'Neill was standing out massively for both of us. I think because I think he's been a little bit. the fans have been a little bit unjust on him. Admittedly, he's not really had the time. He's had a decent go at it, but before, you've got to remember he's inherited a full Portuguese squad, all but, which hasn't helped him at all because that's not the way to play English football. And then in recent times, he's obviously suffered some heavy defeats, but I think they give him a couple more weeks, he'll be all right. Getting through these Wolves and then Leicester fixtures, getting through the Ipswich fixture, sorry, and then Leicester. I think they'll pick up 6 points there and probably then boost themselves out of the bottom three, and then they'll be in with more of a shot of mid table.
Yeah, no, yeah, totally. I don't think they'll. For me, though, I don't think they'll be finishing anywhere near mid-table. I think they're going to be. They're the team at the moment on my radar that I think are very likely to go down.
Oh yeah, you're fully Wolves down, are you? That's fair enough as well. I can totally see that. What are
I
your
think
what are your
O'Neill's.
opinions? What are your opinions on fans singing for him to be out though? Because I think that's quite a big thing when it comes to football. Fans getting behind their own manager is normally a boost for the team, but you can see here with Wolves and O'Neill that the fans are completely against him.
Oh yeah, I'm talking from my QPR perspective. 11 games without a win, and we were still at that time chanting Marty's
Yeah,
name,
I think
and I
yeah,
just think booing for your manager probably isn't right, but they're probably just trying to get their voice heard. So I don't blame fans, especially the Bulls fans after the run of form that they are in. I
yeah,
don't.
that's fair enough completely. I agree with you. I'm personally one. I don't think fans should ever really boo their own manager. But in Wolves' case, they've had a decent run in the Prem. They've now had O'Neill in, who probably should have had a bit more time to rebuild his squad and probably done a bit more with the time he's had. But yeah, like you say, fans can only get angry when it's going bad. There's no reason for them to start chanting his name in the current state Wolves are in.
But
Um,
like, you look at their games all the way through this season. It's not like they lose a game 1-0
yeah,
or by 1 goal. It's usually a spanking
I don't think,
at the
according to the
moment.
stats, so you quote me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they've actually lost a game by 1 goal this season. I think they've always been at least two,
They've lost
potentially
a few by one
City in
goal, but
there.
they've conceded 2 goals.
Yeah, I think they've always conceded over one, which is probably not a great stat
Yeah,
to their
exactly.
name. I don't. If I'm being honest, I don't think they've actually only ever conceded 1 goal in the game. I think when they concede at least two, which is it's not a good stat to have. And I'm sure if O'Neill does go, then I'm sure they'll be picking up a new manager who may come in and give a bit of an instant impact. But until next season, I don't think we're going to see the Wolves of old, the Wolves that were challenging for the top 10. Um, which is fair enough with a new manager coming in. I mean, we've seen Amorim at United; he's not coming and made the instant impact either, which fans were kind of expecting. But yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? New managers come in, new manager bounce sometimes happen, new manager bounce does not happen. It's football at the end of the day, and that's the sport we love.
Yeah. Well, going on to that as well, obviously coming out today from since recording this, Lamina um, stripped the captaincy after his little
This little
spat
tussle, we'll
after the
call it.
game.
Yeah, I
So now Nelson Semedo has taken the armband.
yeah, I think that's pretty fair enough. I think the reaction there was you can see a player who's emotionally attached to a football club, who's actually lost his head completely. I don't think he's interested in the football side of things now. He's more interested in the club itself. Because as players, they're probably worried. They're thinking we do not want to be playing Championship football next season, and there's no disrespect on the Championship there because we're obviously both massive fans of Championship football, but I think for a club like Wolves and a player like Lamina, he doesn't want to be playing down that level. He's a bit better than that. He's been in the Prem for most of his career. He's been at clubs such as Juventus, such as Nice. He's now come over to Wolves, and he's looking for a bigger impact than what he's currently having.
It's probably more as well. The players know that that squad is not a bad squad. That Wolves squad,
Yeah,
and
yeah, definitely.
they are below their expectations that they're meant to be at this year. And I
I think
think that's probably a build up of frustration as well. And with results not going their way,
yeah, I totally agree. I think and Nelson Semedo coming in as captain. I'm assuming he was assistant before vice captain. I don't know that for sure. but I'm assuming he was. So it's coming in. He's not a new face for the club. He's been there a good few years now. He knows the facility. He knows the young players that are coming through. I think he'll probably have a better impact potentially than Lamina, especially as we've seen Lamina. He's very card heavy. He loves a yellow card in the game. He's not shy of a red card, and then he also loves a bit of afters here and there. He's probably the best captain for the facilities and for the changing room. But when it comes to stepping on that pitch, potentially he's not what they're looking for at the moment.
Yeah,
Especially in a time of struggle, we'll call it, with them not doing as bad as well as they thought. I think I want to touch on this massively. We're going to move away now from Wolves, but for me, we really didn't intro ourselves at the beginning, considering it is the first podcast of the Unfiltered pod. I want to mention that I'm a massive Plymouth fan. I'm a season ticket holder for the last 4 seasons, and I do try and do as many home games and away games as possible. I would not say I'm diehard when it comes to travelling home and away. That's purely through work and all the other bits, but Plymouth is the club for me, unfortunately, and considering the time we're in at the moment, Rooney's future, Mike Phelan being announced, there's a lot going on around the club itself. I don't know. Obviously, you as a QPR fan, I don't know what your opinions are, being quite a close rival to us.
yeah. QBR season ticket holder. Um, it's been a up and down start. Let's just put it that way.
I mean, yeah, that's the easy way of putting it. Let's say because you didn't have the best of starts under Marty, did you? This season, it was kind of all green at the back end of last season, and then moving forward into this season, you slowed up a bit. You saw the bottom of the table for a few weeks, and now you've picked up some results.
Yeah, summer was massive for QBR and bringing in a lot of new faces with this new strategy of data driven. So a bit like your Brentfords and your Brightons.
Yeah,
Um, so moulding them all into a squad took time, and it's been a long time going, nearly 14 games without a win. Um, yeah, it's been tough, but if you were to speak to me, if we were to start this pod a month and a half ago, things might have been different. But the last 4 games, 4 or 5 games, unbeaten, 4 clean sheets, can't really complain. Out the
I was
bottom
going to
three.
say, yeah, you really can't complain. You're 4 points clear of Plymouth at the moment. Admittedly, we do have a game in hand, but that game in hand will be Oxford, which is a massive game for us considering they did just jump up the leagues last season. So it's an interesting one. But yeah, talking on Plymouth at the moment, I think it is. I think we can kind of skip away from QPR because, like you say, they've had a terrible start, but they've picked up drastically in the last few weeks. Plymouth, on the other hand, and like I say, I've got a lot of time to talk about Plymouth, but I think if we were to talk about the terrible, terrible fixtures we've had in the last few weeks, this podcast would go on for a lot more than what we're scheduling tonight. Because we've conceded 12 goals in the last 3 games, two being 10 goals in 2 games, which is like no football club should ever experience that. We had the 6-1 away to Norwich, then we had 4-0 away to Bristol City, which again, 2 away games. We are terrible away from home, but 10 goals in 2 games for any football club in any level of the pyramid, whether you're playing Sunday League or you're playing at the top level, 10 goals in 2 games is never acceptable. I mean, I don't know if you've got much else to talk on Plymouth at the moment, but I kind of want to jump over our recent fixtures as quick as possible.
Well, I- I'm going by what I've seen this year. Obviously, watching when you came to Lotters Road, we couldn't even beat you. But um, I feel like at points during the season, I've been impressed with Plymouth somehow by the way you've picked up results. I look at, yeah, the performance wasn't great against Preston, but to be 3-0 down and then come back and draw 3-3, that shows a lot of character. Um,
Yeah,
but one thing I've picked up about Plymouth is your your top goal scorers on 3 goals.
yeah,
There's
that is
no
that's one big thing for us. I think at the moment is
your
we're
attacking threat.
yeah, it's an issue. Um, we'll touch on that Loftus Road game in a minute because we were both there. You were obviously in the home end, I was in the away end. But yeah, like you say, our top goal scorer is currently on 3 goals, which you look at that and you're like, oh, that's not too bad. But you look at that and it's Sissoko being the top goal scorer with goals per game. He's been out for the last month. You look then at Andre Gray. Fair enough, he's a big name. He's coming to a smaller club. He's looking to make that impact. but he scored 2 goals in one game. So you
Yeah.
minus those two, he's still on only 1 goal. You then look at Morgan Whittaker, who's meant to be our star player, who has had one of the worst starts to a footballing season for such a standout player that I think I've ever seen in recent time. So it's a big issue for Plymouth at the moment. And I'm, as a Plymouth fan again, I'm worried. I don't know if the Rooney effect is playing in our favour, but we'll see. Obviously, he's appointed Mike Phelan in the last week, so it's one of those things where you never really know. Mike Phelan being a massive part of the Sir Alex Ferguson era at United. So whether it works or whether it doesn't, we have to take it by ear. We have to play it over time now. It's a waiting game for us Plymouth fans.
I don't blame Rooney for all of it, because I think there's a lot more at the club that's probably a bit higher up that's not great at Plymouth.
Yeah.
Reading through many sources, but yeah, Rooney, some of the styles of football and his defensive minded um, tactics when he goes away from home is just shocking.
Mhm.
And you're so leaky at the back, and
We've
that
always struggled.
that
Yeah.
that mentality is not gonna having that mentality and mindset is not gonna win you games, and that's gonna see you more than likely
I mean,
into League One.
it's not. Yeah, I was going to say it's not going to keep us up. We've always struggled away from home, which is just a massive factor because you take in all of the considerates of we travel the furthest for every away game. Fine, we travel at least 3 hours. Fine, but at what point is some manager going to come in and go, "That's irrelevant. We now have to see 3 points away from home." Nobody has ever come in and been like, the home fixtures and the home run of form is brilliant, but the away fixtures are crap. What's going to change there? That's the most important part of Plymouth's success and Plymouth's journey. Is the home fixtures are so good, the away fixtures are so bad. Fans have now got used to. We go away, we're going to lose. Like I'm fully expecting Saturday. We've got Sheffield United. I'm fully expecting a loss, not because they're doing so well, but because we're doing so terribly away from home. We then have home to Middlesbrough. We then got away game again. We then got another away game. It's like we've got 3 away games in the next 4. Are we going to see some success? And
Well,
that's up to Rooney and the club to answer, really.
before the Oxford game, there was obviously loads of reports coming out that Wayne Rooney had 2 games to save his job.
Yeah.
But obviously now, after the Swansea defeat, Mike Phelan is now been appointed as assistant.
Mm-hmm.
So it leads me to believe that maybe the club are still going to back Rooney and maybe give him January to try save it, because they wouldn't appoint Mike Phelan just
Just
for
for the sake
two
of it,
games,
really. Yeah.
you know.
I
So be interesting to see, especially with Sheffield, Middlesbrough, and Coventry as your next 3 games.
yeah. I agree. I think I've never been. I hate this saying of I'm sat on the fence because I think you should personally have an opinion on whether he, not in football but generally, but I think this time around with Rooney you should either be he's out or he's in. But currently I'm sat directly in the middle because he's got the name, he's got the potential to bring in a lot of new players to Plymouth, which we've never seen. Like we have never seen. So we could use that to our advantage. However, his coaching and his tactics and his style of football does not marry up with the results we're getting. Because him as a footballer is a much better player than what he is showing as a manager, which we've seen at many different clubs as well. Everyone talks about the Birmingham role. Admittedly, they didn't necessarily turn their season around when he left, so maybe Birmingham were just a sinking ship. Then you look at the Derby role; he didn't necessarily do the best there, considering he is literally England's one of England's best strikers ever. So it's one of those where I think we have to give him a bit more time than what he's had. But will he prevail? I don't know, and I don't really want to jinx it at the moment. Um, but yeah, it's one of those things we can talk all day, and like I touched on earlier, I could sit here for hours on end and talk about Rooney and talk about Plymouth and talk about the stuff that's going on around that football club at the moment. But I think for my for my mental well being and my mental state, I think we'll jump over that and we'll move on to some more interesting football, shall we? Should we move on to the Premier League?
Yeah, so each week we're going to pick one game from the game week that we think is has got the most probably talking points about it.
Yeah,
or the most standout game. So we'll go one from the Premier League all the way down to League One, League Two even. So we're just going to talk a little bit about them. So we'll start with the Premier League game, which kicked off 4:30 on Sunday.
yeah.
The
It's only
Manchester
fair to talk
Derby.
about the Manchester derby, isn't it? I think it's kind of the touch point of the weekend where we've kind of got to stand up there and look to see two dying need Manchester clubs currently battling it out.
Well, first of all, it's probably the first Manchester Derby in ages that both teams are out of form,
Yeah,
like doing shocking. City have hit a massive decline. Something's not clicking at Man City. Obviously, Rodri missing's massive, but that shouldn't change the whole
yeah.
system of Man
It's,
City.
it's completely changed the whole format, hasn't it? I saw.
Yeah,
We're both. I think we're both quite big on Twitter. We both love a bit of a scroll through there. But I saw a thing earlier of Rodri. It was like, how does one man win the league 4 times over on his own? And it's quite true, isn't it? Like Rodri's left the fold, obviously being injured, and they have completely lost their whole format, their whole philosophy of playing football. And I don't know, I don't know really. I can't really quote on it because I'm actually gobsmacked on how they're doing so terribly. I don't know. What do you think's going wrong?
I don't think I myself could put a finger on what's going on.
Do you think
I
it's Pep?
just think no,
Do you think
I
Pep's having
don't
the
think
issue?
it's
No.
Pep. I think it's really hard. I just think it's a mentality problem, and like Carl Walker came out and said that he's unsure what's going on. Like I don't think the players know. I think it's just a mentality thing that's holding this City squad back at the moment.
Do you think what like? I'm just curious. Obviously, we're here to just chat about football, but what mentality do you think they've lost? Because obviously they've had the mentality there to be the champions of England. They've won Carabaos, they've won FA Cups, they've won the Premier Leagues. What do you think's changed? What do you think's kind of lost for them?
I looked at obviously they absolutely cruised past Everton the other day. Obviously a 4-0 win, and in that game I saw a bit of.
Who was
Oh
that?
no,
Sorry,
I'm thinking of the wrong game here. I'm thinking of United.
you think
City cruised past Forest and
yeah.
won 3-0 the other day, and they had a bit of their killer instinct back. That's what I think is honestly missing. Their confidence attackingly. They used to be so free flowing, and it's just not that at the moment with Man United. With Man City even.
I agree totally. There's one thing I kind of want to touch on because I think it is a massive part of football at the moment is Haaland. Um, for me, I've always said from minute one he walked into City, I was like he's a fantastic goal scorer and he always will be a fantastic goal scorer. However, player, I don't necessarily think he's the player City needed, and I will stand by that. And there may be people that are listening to us after this, and maybe like Callum, you're the first one we've listened to you, but you're an idiot. I honestly do not think he's the player that City needed because they've gone from such a progressive player in Aguero to just a natural goal scorer in Haaland. And we're seeing this season he's having a massive deplete from seasons gone, which and again necessarily isn't his issue because they have been weaker in midfield, they've been weaker in defence, they've been weaker out on the wings, but he's not creating anything going forward. You may have a
Uh,
different judgment to that, but that's currently how I see it.
yeah, I definitely don't feel like Haaland's. I think Haaland's got such an expectation.
Yeah.
He's he's lighted up over many seasons over the last couple of seasons, and I think that
hmm
expectation is so high that if he is dropping below it, um,
I
then
get he's also had injury issues. I get that, but yeah, I think
I think he's
he's currently.
one of. Sorry, you carry on.
You're going to say he's one of the best in the world, aren't you?
No,
I can hear it
I
coming.
think he's one of the best goal scorers we will see. I'm
Do you think?
telling you,
I
like
I, I think
clinical wise,
I
yeah.
think goal scoring wise, yeah, I agree. There's an age old question of if you saw Harry Kane in that in the England squad, in the Man City squad, sorry, do you think he'd gain as many goals as Haaland? And it's a question I would like to ask you, because obviously you've seen Harry Kane many years in English football, and now you've seen Haaland for a couple of years in English football. You've then seen Harry Kane progress, move over to Germany, do pretty well as well, I think, amongst himself. He's obviously not won a trophy just yet, which I think plenty of fans are finding quite hilarious. But do you think that if you were to see Harry Kane in that in that City squad, you'd get as many goals from him as Haaland is currently progressing and moving forward?
Personally, no.
You don't think so?
I think Kane's such a good, obviously, a brilliant striker, a great goal
Yeah.
scorer, and a great facilitator. But I just don't think he would be. They're two complete different strikers for me.
Yeah.
But we talk about Haaland being maybe not his game this year. He's still joint top goal scorer in the Prem. Like, just because City are struggling doesn't mean that Haaland will still hit 25 goals this season. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Haaland will.
I agree.
So I just think he's not been at his best, but the whole City squad, attacking wise, haven't been at their best.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't think you
That's
can
totally
sit there
fair
and
enough.
just, as soon as City go bad, pinpoint Haaland.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Do you still think they're going to win the league? Do you think there's a chance that they catch up to Liverpool? Obviously, there's a massive gap at the moment. There's an 8 point deficit to Liverpool. Liverpool do currently still have a game in hand that can then move to 11 points, depending on the result against Everton. Do you think that's
Yeah.
still an objective they'll be aiming for?
Yeah, I was. Funny enough, I was listening to the Rest is Football podcast with Gary Lineker,
Don't promote other podcasts, all right, Liam? No need to
Shearer.
promote.
Shearer and Michael Richards. This was one of the questions. City can still win that league. They can. They're in that. But are City in the title race? Yes. Do I think they'll win it? No. Can they win it? Yes.
Yeah, fun.
That's what I have.
Who do you think's going to win the Prem? I think it'll be good. First podcast out here. Who do you think's going to win? We'll go through every league and we'll make a judgment on who we think's going to win every league. Who do you think's going to win the Prem? Do you think there's going to be anyone stand out?
I think.
It's careful what you say,
really
because
tough.
I think if there's a couple of fan bases listening, you're going to have a couple of comments that may say that you are in the wrong here with whatever you answer.
I do think.
And if you say Chelsea, you are 100% in the wrong, by the way.
I do think Liverpool.
You
I
do.
do.
Yeah, I fully agree.
They're going to have a severe drop off.
Yeah, everyone's talking about Liverpool. They'll have a drop. They'll have to have a drop. They'll have to drop points somewhere. Why? Why do they have to? Everyone's saying they have to drop points. They don't. They don't have to drop points. They've played 14 games so far, and they have only dropped. They've lost one game. They've drawn two. I don't know where this whole effect of fan base is saying Liverpool will drop off. They don't have a good manager there. It's his first season in English football. Why? What I don't get this whole effect around Liverpool that they have to drop points.
Yeah, there's gonna be a time that they are gonna drop points. It's a given. I do. I think they're gonna have a game. They've got a really difficult game this weekend.
I think that's football
at home
though.
to Fulham. Exactly.
I think that's football in general, though, isn't it? I think fan bases that give the whole they have to drop points. I don't think they do. I think if they do drop points, it will be a mishap, and then they'll rebound. Like they'll rebound next week. They've gone 10 games. They've got 9 wins and 1 draw in 10 games. That's pretty unheard of when you look at the fixtures they've had. They've played Real Madrid. They've played City. They've played Bayer Leverkusen. They've played Germany's champions. They've played the Spanish champions. They've also played the Premier League champions, and they've won every single game. So I think to be like they have to drop points, I think that's a bit of an out statement in comparison to what they're actually going to achieve this season.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think
they've got obviously now United's a tough game. No matter what it is, it's Manchester Derby away at Old Trafford. It's a tough game.
And they've got that coming up, early January.
That's now.
Liverpool?
No, I'm talking about City.
Oh, you're talking about City. Fine.
Sorry, I've gone on to City here.
My bad, my fault.
City. Obviously, City United, massive game. Amarin's obviously first test of the Manchester Derby. What do you think? How do you think this one will go for Man United?
For United, I think personally, I am everyone's always given it the fingers um, at United and the fan base and the owners and everything like that. But they're one of those teams that I think Alex Ferguson left them in such a terrible position, and a lot of United fans are going to point things at me and be like, Alex Ferguson's the best thing since sliced bread, this, that, and the other. He was such a good manager, and he's probably the best manager football will ever see. And I don't think I'm unjust in saying that. But the club he left, the club that the whole facility had to inherit, was not good enough to play in the Premier League. He knew that. So then, from that day onwards, they've just gotten worse and worse and worse. And it was always going to happen. Clubs will never ever be purely successful. Everybody has to have a down period, and United are in that down period where they need to find the right chemistry, the right potion, we'll call it. You do not make a correct potion without putting the right ingredients in. And United currently are trying to find that potion, but they're just putting the wrong things in. You need to get rid of players. You need to find out what's going to work. Radcliffe lowering the lowering the wages of staff members is not going to help. You need to look at what's in front of you. You need to look at the pure facts to then remove those elements of the potion. And I currently think that United are getting it all wrong. Like Amorim, I think is a great appointment. But you look at Sporting, he's obviously a great manager because they were doing so well. He's left. They've now lost 3 out of their last 4 games. So there's a massive issue with clubs and then managers moving on. But him moving to United is obviously proven a bigger difficulty than what he originally thought, which is fair enough because you don't just walk into English football and you don't become a brilliant manager. Slot is a big example of that. Like he has walked in, but that's because he inherited such a good squad, a good club, a good ethos from Liverpool and from Klopp himself. United have not had a good ethos since Alex Ferguson left. So I think it's a big thing to talk about United as a whole and be like they'll lose to City because it's Man City versus United. But both clubs, not just United, are both a sinking ship currently. So to point the fingers at United and be like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, it's fine. But the whole club's wrong. It's not just a manager, it's not just a player. It's from the owners, it's from the caretakers, it's from the cleaners, it's from the chefs. Everything about Man United currently is wrong. And I mean, I don't know if it's something I'm quite passionate about because they're such a good football club, and in both of our lifetimes, they've been such a great club. Everybody was a Man United fan at school. Everyone's a Man United fan now. But everybody's easy to point the finger at the manager. It's not just the manager. I don't know if you've got anything else to touch on there, but I feel like I've let a little bit of weight off my shoulders there, and I'm not even a Man
No.
United fan.
I think, yeah, like you said, there's a lot going on in Man United that's it's been going on since obviously the Fergie time. I think the squad, like you said, that Alex Ferguson left was an aging squad. It was still capable of doing
Yeah,
better than what it did, 100%.
yeah,
Moyes didn't get the best out of that squad, and no manager since then has been able to get a spark out of that squad. Ten Hag obviously comes in, won 2 trophies. He's bought players that he's wanted, and that's obviously not worked. And is now in a position where Amarin's he's got to find a spark out of this squad, which isn't his squad. He's going to need many transfer windows to fix this squad. United have to give this man time,
yeah. I agree.
because I think he's a good coach,
It's
and I
not.
think he will
Yeah, it's not going to
fix
be
this squad,
an
but
overnight
over
job, is
time.
it? It's not going to be an overnight thing. Just quickly before we move on to the Championship, because I'm conscious we've talked a lot about the Premier League, and I think we've got a little bit more to talk on when it comes to our personal habits, such as Super Six, maybe a bit of fancy football before we move on. But who do you think needs to go from the United team? If you could name 3 players who you think they're sales, you have to sell them in January, or you have to then sell them in the summer. Who would your 3 be?
I'd definitely look at Rashford straight away. Obviously,
Yeah,
this week coming out, the asking price for him is only 40 million. But obviously, Man United have to get rid of some homegrown players,
yeah,
and for me, he's the main one that I would get rid of in the summer. I look at Casemiro now,
yeah.
aging.
Do you think they get a lot of money for Casemiro now? Do you think
No,
how much do you think they
the
get?
only way he'll be going off to Saudi. They
Yeah,
won't get a lot of money for him.
Saudi or Brazil, maybe back to his home country,
Yeah.
have a final blast out there. What about you? Look at the likes of, I'm going to name two players that maybe, I think defensively they're not great, but I think you can build on that. But I'm going to name two players now, which I think it's probably a big talking point here. I'm going to touch on Anthony. What do you think about him?
Um,
If you're honest,
and
if
over
you think
he was
overpriced,
bought for way too much,
yeah.
and the issue with United, I don't think they will sell him because they're not going to get.
What
They're not going
what
to
they
get
paid for?
anywhere near.
Yeah,
Nah, they
I
need
agree.
to. I think they'll carry on trying him, and hopefully they find something out of him.
Yeah,
But
I think they've. I think he's one of those. I do think personally, I'm definitely not as good as him at football, but I think he's terrible as far as professional footballers go. I don't think he's what the Premier League needs. Um, but then my second player was Mason Mount. What are your opinions on him? Because I've got a lot of opinions about him, but I'd like to hear yours first.
I'd lot to say about Mason Mount at Chelsea, obviously. But me being biased, hating Chelsea. But if I was to put my football hat on, I'm saying I think obviously injuries didn't help him last year. But Amarin's trusted Mount
Yeah,
so far. Few appearances, looks like he's getting back to fitness.
he looked semi-sharp last
Um,
night, didn't he? They had the Europa League fixture against Victoria Plaza, and I know they're not the best of sides, they're not the best of outfits, but he at least had some minutes in the squad. He came on in the 61st minute. He had a bit of an impact, which is what we like to see because he's English. None of us support Man United, none of us support Man City, none of us support Liverpool. So we can ultimately identify a decent English prospect and kind of get on board with that. So I think Mason Mount's one of those where we kind of got to support him no matter where he's come from, whether it be Chelsea, Portsmouth. We've kind of got to back him a little bit.
yeah, like I think Mount's a good player. I do,
Yeah,
and I think
I agree.
that given the chance, he will be able to.
Hmm. Just
So
a little bit from that before we move on to the championship. I do have one question for you, which I get we may not have appreciated before this pod, but we're big gamers as well as football fanatics. I'm a big fantasy football player. You're a big Super Six player. How would you say your Super Six season's going? Just for a bit of a
yeah,
personal
all right.
note, how do you think it's going? Do you think you had a good start?
Missed a few weeks, but yeah, no,
So I think it'd
all
be
right.
interesting to see. I think if we get some listeners in here that potentially also play Super Six, we get to hear what your thoughts are, how your season's going, and as well let us know if there's anything that you'd like to see from myself and Liam. Like I say, I'm a big fantasy football player, so I'm pretty much most of my working life is spent trying to work out what transfers to do for the
Yeah,
next
that's
weekend.
not the same as me.
No,
I
you're
do
not.
fantasy football for two
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah, you're one of
Forget about
those.
it.
You're one of those premature fantasy football players,
Yeah.
aren't you? You love it on the build up, and then it gets to the season, you're like, nah, giving up with that.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think it's time to head over to the championship.
championship, the best league in the world. We'll probably say from a
Yeah.
biased opinion.
So
The game we picked out this weekend, right, is Norwich versus Burnley. That's ultimately the biggest game of the weekend. I'd say you'd also agree.
yeah, so that's Sunday 2 o'clock. Last time these two met at Carrow Road was back in 2022,
Yeah,
which
would have
was
been from
under
Burnley
Vincent
relegated.
Company.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh, Burnley took a 3-0 win. Um, Burnley looking impressive at the moment. Um, Still a lot of improvement at Burnley, I believe. I feel like Scott Parker football is good, sometimes a bit boring, but he always steps up in them big games.
yeah.
And then I look at Norwich, who have hit quite a big decline at the moment.
Would you say
Um,
would you say decline or would you say not what we're expecting? Because everyone expects Norwich to be that yo-yo team. They were a yo-yo team back in the day, but now they've kind of set their sights on the Championship football, haven't they?
I I don't see Norwich as a playoff team.
No, nor do I.
For
I
me,
don't know
I
do
see
I.
them as where they are now. But they went on a massive, um, not massive, but without a win. About
Yeah,
7 games without a win. Their last 2 games obviously took a battering to QPR,
yeah.
which
I knew
was
you were going to
brilliant.
touch on that.
Which was brilliant for
You
me.
couldn't avoid that, could you?
And then obviously quite a disappointing 0-0 draw away to Portsmouth. Probably
Yeah.
two games where they went into thinking, do you know what, we can get something out of these two games,
Oh,
and then we would be talking probably differently, going they're
I
in
would
and
have quite
around
liked
that
them to beat
playoff spot.
Portsmouth. I think that's just me, maybe from a biased point of view because I'm a Plymouth fan, Dockyard Derby. But I'd quite like them to beat them. I think that would have done me nicely because Plymouth would have also been closer to jumping out of that relegation zone. Um,
Yeah,
but
but I look at the
you
sorry,
carry
I
on, you
look at the
carry.
game, and obviously, Borja Signs has been
Wow,
sensational this
yeah,
season. Um, Top goal scorer in the league. But when I saw him against us, I'm just going by. He was nowhere to be seen, and clearly was nowhere to be seen at Portsmouth either.
I'm going to
Um,
tell you the exact opposite because when we saw him against Plymouth, he was by far the best player on the pitch and showed quality of being able to take that next step up and move into the Premier League. Again, it's one of those because he's not necessarily been on it every single game, but when he is on it, I mean, we both can't lie that he's probably the best player currently in the Championship, can we?
I wouldn't probably even put him up there with top player in the Championship.
Who would you say is
Definitely
better?
top striker.
Who would you say
Top
currently?
striker is probably the best striker.
And as long as it's not
Um,
a QPR player, we can move on from
no, but I said
that.
that he's out and out the best clinical finisher right now,
Yeah,
proven. But I, for me personally, there's many more players in this league
Finnazaz.
that
Finnazaz up
Finnazaz
there?
has been
Yeah.
amazing for
Yeah,
Middlesbrough this
I'd
year.
agree. Oh, yeah, I'd agree on
Um,
that, and that's from me being a jealous Plymouth fan that they signed him and we didn't for 2 mil. But never
but
mind.
it's a close game. You've got Burnley, who are in a decent run of form. Uh, Step up against the big teams. Scott
Yeah,
Parker, I think he knows how to get the job done in the Championship. I do. His style of football is very boring, but when it gets the job done,
you can't really complain,
like
can you?
you
It's one of
can't
those. Yeah.
complain too much.
Do you think there's a massive difference going off general football wise? Because obviously we see games on a on a Thursday. We've got Derby versus Portsmouth tonight on the day of recording. We then have fixtures moving forward throughout the weekend. Do you think there's a massive difference between playing on a Friday, not a Thursday, sorry, playing on Friday, Saturday, then Sunday? Do you think the teams on a Sunday maybe feel a little bit more pressure in comparison to those playing earlier on?
Nah,
Do you not
not
think?
for me.
No,
Not for me. If anything, I'd feel more pressure. For
being
example,
first up.
tonight you look at Derby and Portsmouth. Portsmouth need a win.
Yeah,
They've got two games in hand. They need a win. Pressure's on them.
we are going to
I
be
don't.
live currently. We're going to be recording, so whenever you are watching this, we are going to be live while Derby and Portsmouth do in fact kick off. So if any goals do go in whilst we are recording, we'll be sure to share that and give our opinions. But currently it is 0-0 and we are only a minute in, so it's going to be a very slow starter, I think.
But
But
yeah, I just want to quickly touch on a little bit of Norwich, and then we can move
yeah,
on. But
yeah,
because I think Burnley, cool. I'd love to talk so much about Burnley because I think they are a good club.
100%. A really
They
well
don't
run club.
need. They don't need. I think this game's all about Norwich at the moment in how they get back to form, because I look at they're without Kenny McLean after the incident that happened against QPR.
Yeah.
Um, they got Josh Arden out, so there's two there already, two key players for Norwich. You look at the the run that they've got. Obviously, they've got Burnley, then they got Sunderland, Millwall, QPR, Luton. Them games aren't easy.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
they currently sit
I
6 points
totally agree.
off the playoffs. Um, and yeah,
Do
I
you
think
think?
this is a massive game for Burnley as well, because a win here could see him jump up into second, keep competing with the likes of Leeds,
Yeah.
and
That's
yeah,
big,
who
isn't
knows?
it? Because you want to be in that automatic playoff position at the end of the season. You do not want to have to go to Wembley because that's the most heartbreaking thing, isn't it? Right? Plymouth have been at Wembley a few times, but I've been to the last two. One against Wimbledon, one against Bolton. Bolton being in the EFL Trophy, which did ultimately mean nothing, but we got absolutely hammered. And Wembley's not an occasion for everybody, is it? So you have to go there in the playoffs. It's the worst possible scenario. Winning being the best, but losing is horrific for any team. You've seen it with QPR.
Yeah, um, yeah. I think Burnley have every
Mhm.
chance of even winning it.
What
The league this year is so close, and I don't think the competition, the standards there this year.
do you
It's
not?
going to be a close. It's going to be a really close for top two. It's going to be close for top six. It's going to be close for the bottom three. I think this year is it's going to be a competitive year
Yeah,
for every team. Every team's got a chance. You
we're
look,
we're we're halfway through, and I think it's no matter whether you're at the bottom or you're at the top, it's always close to calling the championship. You're never going to get that team that runs away with either end. You're not going to get a team that loses every week, and you're never going to get a team that wins every week. So it's one
yeah.
of those. It will always go down to the last few games.
I don't want to keep using QPR as an example, but you
No,
sit there,
we'll
QPR
allow you.
second bottom in the league, suddenly go 5 games unbeaten. Now you're looking at it and you're going, cool, yeah, we're still in and around that relegation zone, fine. But we're now only 5 points off the top half.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So not that I'm looking there going, that's where we should be.
Mhm.
I'm saying how important a run of fixtures are. If we can go 5 unbeaten, 6 unbeaten,
Yeah.
just jumps you straight out of that table in the
It's it,
championship.
it does say a lot, doesn't
It's
it, about the championship
it's
football?
massive. You've got to be consistent in the championship to be able to build, and
Yeah,
that's where I think Norwich keep falling is they're not consistent.
yeah. My
So
final
I
thing on the
think,
championship, just sorry to interrupt you, is the the Michael Cooper at the moment, because obviously he's a big Plymouth fan. We want to touch on, we want to give people that watch him potentially an interest into our backgrounds as to why we kind of support QPR, why I support Plymouth. But Michael Cooper's been a massive part of Plymouth for a good few years now. We've seen him progress through Young Player of the Season in our academy to then move all the way through to first team football. He has now moved on, and he's currently holding the Championship Clean Sheet Award. What do you think his potential is, being top of the Championship right now, potentially looking at a Premier League move next season?
what, for Michael Cooper?
Yeah. Well, do you think anything of him, or have you not really had a good view in of
Do
him?
you know, I've not. To me, he's not been the standout. For me,
Goalkeeper
um,
wise, who would you say is otherwise? Because this is a big thing. We might disagree here, which is
yeah,
probably
no,
a nice thing
I'm
for
not
the
saying Michael
viewers.
Cooper is not a bad player because he's a brilliant player.
Yeah.
For me, if I'm going to say Paul Nardi, I think Paul Nardi's been unbelievable for us, and he's kept us in
You're
so many
saying
games.
you're saying
Full,
goalkeeper of the
full
season over Michael Cooper.
for me.
That's
He's for me. He's QBR's player of the season so far.
fine. Well, that's because they don't have another player this season. But we we'll move on. We'll move on from that, because I think Michael Cooper probably is probably not getting the respect potentially that fans are seeing, not from you and I obviously, but generally. Um, I think it will take a season in the Premier League for people to realise if he is good or bad, because ultimately, like we were saying, the Championship is so up and down that potentially he won't make the impact in the Championship in comparison to the Prem, or vice versa. So it's one of those where goalkeepers have got the hardest job on the pitch, don't they? Ultimately,
Yeah.
and I
One thing I
think
will say is Angus Gunn,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
probably best goalkeeper in the league last year, without a shadow of a doubt. He looks absolutely,
Mhm.
well, he looks off it at the moment. Watch him against QPR. He's at fault for,
Yeah.
I would say, 3 of the goals.
He's another one of those. He follows the Championship tradition. Like he's one game he's really good, and the next game he's really bad. That's
Mm.
kind of the scenario we're in for every team at the moment, which is kind of what we love, isn't it? It's one of those. It's football at the end of the day. You'd hate it if one team was to run away with every league. Um,
Yeah.
but off
Should
that,
we move on?
we'll talk. We could talk Championship all day. So
Yeah.
let's touch on a league Plymouth have actually been in recently, League One. A team that's quite
So
local for you as well, right? You're a big
yeah,
Stevenage
bear in
boy.
mind, um, bear in mind, this is our first podcast. We
Sorry, I'm
just
just going to jump in. Derby have currently gone 1-0 up against Portsmouth, which could be a massive thing for both of us
huge,
in the long run.
huge for the bottom. It's
But
huge for the bottom.
yeah, we'll move on before we talk too
Um,
much.
yeah. So we're gonna first podcast. Cut us a bit of slack. First time recording this, so we're just this is just a warm up for us, okay?
We're touching on
But
every league, right?
yeah, so League One, we got Stevenage versus Stockport. Wasn't many standout games for me in this one.
No, I think
Stevenage is a team that I know well of over the last few seasons. Family support them. Um, so
it,
yeah, I know a lot about Stevenage, which I want to get into, and also Stockport. Stockport looked really good over the last few years.
Yeah,
delve in a little bit on that.
I want to jump in as a complete neutral here because I've got connections to League One through being to some grounds potentially, through a couple of family connections, but then also I do stand at a complete neutral point. I've got no team in League One which I currently want to win it. So it'd be nice to hear your insight as somebody who does have a bit of a connection to a team and does potentially want them to do a bit better than the
Whoa,
last
whoa, 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 whoa! Not a
and stuff like
connection.
that.
Not a connection.
Not a
I
connection,
don't
fine.
like them.
We
I
won't
don't
we won't
like them.
we won't call it a connection. We'll say a mutual agreement to
Yeah,
the
there you go.
Stevenage fans.
We'll do that.
But yes, I'm kind of going to let you lead on this one because, like I say, I'm kind of a neutral to the whole League One at the moment.
Yeah, no, I'll start off with Stockport. Really, they're again back to back promotions. Um, they've been incredible over the last few years, um, and currently sit fifth. So they're in a playoff spot. Look strong. Former QPR legend Clint Hill there as a coach. They got Louis Barry firing in goals, 14 league goals this season. Um, looks really clinical this year, and if they can keep him firing, there's every chance that they could be in and around that top half, pushing for a playoff spot.
Yeah,
I go on to Stevenage now, sitting 14th. Probably not the season that a lot of Stevenage fans thought was going to happen. Obviously, losing uh, Steve Evans at the end of last season, a big hit for Stevenage fans because Stevenage fans have a lot of time and respect for Steve Evans, and they've Alex Revel is now in charge, so he was the assistant of Steve Evans when he was there. Stevenage sit 9 points off the playoffs. They're closer to the relegation zone, which is definitely not what they want.
yeah, 3 points, isn't
They've
it?
got
If
a
I'm
quality.
stand correct, it's 3 points off relegation
Nah,
currently.
it's a little bit. I believe it's a bit more. Could be wrong,
I'll have a quick look for you. Well, you carry on
but
talking. I'll get some. I'll get the league up for
yeah,
us.
some quality players in there. Jamie Reed last year, right amongst the goals, brilliant player. They've got a solid base of a squad, and Alex Revel hasn't been able to get a spark out of them at the moment, which has led to some quite disappointing results at Stevenage. But I do think they're gonna start kicking on at some point, and I believe that they're gonna finish top half. I do. Um, and yeah, I really like the Stevenage squad. They've got some brilliant players. Um, yeah, I don't know if you got anything to say on that.
I I think, like I say, I stand completely neutral, but I do want to touch on Louis Barry a bit more. I think we've not given him really the chat that he deserves because he's such a young prospect that came through the whole system at Villa. He then took that big step over moving to Barcelona
Yeah,
as such a young lad, which is it's not something you see every day. You don't really hear of young English stars moving over there. He's come back, didn't really have the impact he liked at Villa. He's now gone out on loan in Stockport, and everyone's been like Louis Barry this, Louis Barry that. He's kind of made a name for himself just by moving to Barcelona, and he is now
yeah,
lighting up League One, isn't he? Like if we're being honest, he is lighting it up. He is the standout performer. And unlike the Championship, I don't think there's any debate to say that Louis Barry is currently up there for Player of the Year.
yeah. No, he looks really good, really
Yeah,
impressive this year. I've watched quite a few games of Louis Barry this year. I've watched quite a bit of Stockport. I really like what Stockport are doing this year. And over many years, I think they're a really well run club with
yeah.
limited resources. And they sit, I'd say, quite comfortably at the moment in the playoffs. 3 points out of it. No, 3 points. Sorry, um, inside. It's looking good. Um, but yeah, I just think there's quite a big level, a big gap in League One with teams. But
Do
I
you
look
think if
at
Stockport were to go up on a hypothetical here, do you think they struggle in the Championship? I think they
yeah,
don't. We're
definitely.
talking about next season. Do you think they
Yeah, I'm
struggle quite
talking
big?
about finances. It's if buts, isn't it? But I think
Yeah,
finance
it's
wise,
one of those. It's one of
I
those.
think
Yeah, the if buts and
there's too
maybes.
many
But
There's big hitters in this league this year, though. You got your
mhm,
Wrexhams, your
yeah,
Birmingham,
there's
your
the,
Huddersfield.
a lot of Hollywood
There's
teams. We'll call them. Birmingham obviously spending the record transfer fee. You've then got Wrexham, literally a Hollywood team. Stockport, who have done a pretty incredible job of getting promoted. You've then got Wickham, who probably would argue should be in the Championship themselves. Huddersfield just got relegated. Reading have been up there. Bolton have been up there. there's a lot of teams who are probably seeking that success again.
Mm.
You then move down the league. You've then got Blackpool, who probably in our both times we never introduced the fact that you're only 23, I'm 21, so we've seen the highs of Blackpools and the Boltons. Blackpool should probably be up there. So there's a lot of teams now which you're looking at that being like these are teams which in our era have been in the Premier League. You look at Wigan as well. There's teams in League One which in my head I think they should probably be progressing up the league tables.
Yeah, I say League One's probably the hardest league to get out of.
Yeah,
There's
it's
some
a difficult
brilliant
one, isn't
squads in
it?
there.
It's and I'll
Um,
tell you that firsthand. We we had a difficult situation, but we got there in the end. Um, but yeah,
but yeah,
it's a difficult one. It's one of those situations where Stevenage and Stockport probably find themselves in a bit of the opposites. However, they're both probably looking to seek the same outcome eventually.
yeah, I think Stevenage are. I don't think Stevenage deserve. I think they deserve to be where they are with the performances they've
Hmm.
had. I think they've definitely not played to the ability that I think a lot of the fans know they can. Um,
You
but
caught them a bit in. They were in League Two, right? As well, you caught them a bit there.
yeah, so
What were
they were in
they?
League Two.
What were they like? What were they like then? Has there only been big differences, or not really?
No, they still got quite a little bit of the same with the squad. Um, Obviously, the big difference is the manager.
Yeah,
I think last season was a really positive season for Stevenage. Narrowly missing out on the playoffs, but I don't know. Something's got to change.
yeah.
Obviously,
Do you think
I got
that? Do you think they take mid-table? They're happy with
yeah,
mid-table.
definitely,
Oh,
definitely. I think that
fantastic. Well,
they're a club that
it's
just
always a
need
good
to
thing.
stay in that league for
Yeah, if a
another
team's
season.
pretty consistent and happy where they are, then us as fans we can get on board with that and move on and
Yeah,
allow them to have that recognition in that league, which is nice.
yeah,
And
definitely.
talking about a team which probably could afford to be in the league above. We're talking about two teams now that are fighting in the playoffs currently. You're halfway through the season, all but moving into the January transfer window. We're going to move now into League Two. We're talking about Wimbledon and Doncaster, third v sixth. It's a big game right this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Wimbledon have been quite impressive from what I've seen. I'm not gonna sit here and say I've watched every single game
Yeah,
of Wimbledon. I've watched quite a lot of highlights of Wimbledon, and I think they look good. They got Matthew Stevens
yeah.
currently on 10 goals this season. That's for any team to have a goal scorer, an out goal scorer. It's always going to be a positive. Um, yeah, I think form wise they're in not bad form. But then we move on to Doncaster, who are unbeaten in five, just look solid. So this is a really tough game to call, I think. Um,
I
and
agree. I think it's going to be a difficult game. The one thing we'll touch on Wimbledon just a little bit more. I think it's a bit close to home for us both, being based London area. Um, you talk about the goals. You talk about Matthew Stevens being on 10 goals currently. You then look at their second top goal scorer, which again, if you have that out and out goal scorer, it doesn't really matter what the rest of the team are doing. But you then have Omar Bugle, who is only on 3 goals and he is second top goal scorer. Where the goals are coming from somewhere, but not necessarily all aspects of the pitch, which we have seen teams struggle with. But then again, they've got a game in hand on a couple of teams above. If they win that game in hand, they go joint third with Doncaster. That's why this game on Saturday is such a big game for them. What do you think they could necessarily improve on? Again, you've already touched on you haven't necessarily seen the most of Wimbledon this season. Do you think there's anything that maybe moving into January they could improve on?
for me, 100% is sorting out their away form.
Yeah,
For like 9 games away, 4 losses, 4 wins. I
yeah,
like it's not bad, but compared to their home form, they look solid at home.
hmm
Losing only 2 games at home this season, I for me, I think get that sorted. I think they've got a good enough squad to be in that playoffs for sure.
yeah.
They're not going to be pushing that top two, top three. I don't
No,
think.
not
I
do
think
I. I
they're going to
don't.
be a playoff team.
I think playoffs as well, and I think it's always interesting because you always see MK Dons and Wimbledon always up near each other, no matter where they are. Whether they're in the playoffs, they're near each other. The mid-table, they're near each other. They're the bottom end of the table. They're always near each other. So there's always an interesting derby there, isn't it? It's one of those where No one ever talks about it because it's never publicised, because it's never in the Championship, it's never the Premier League. But it's still such a fierce rivalry, isn't it? At the end of the day,
Yeah, definitely.
it's one the fans get
Um,
on board with. It's one the fans hate.
yeah, and they got Grant. I look at Doncaster as well. Grant McCann in charge. Um, Great manager. Has been successful in um, many jobs. And yeah, again, speechless. I don't know how this game is going to go.
No.
This could.
So
I wouldn't be surprised if Wimbledon win,
you think
but I also wouldn't be surprised if Doncaster win.
we're going to talk about?
I know it sounds stupid,
Surely
but
we'll touch on Doncaster a little bit, because obviously I think we've given Wimbledon a bit of recognition, but I think we need to touch on Doncaster as well, because they have had a very, very good start to the season. Look at their home fixtures; they're not as good as potentially their away fixtures, but their away form is very, very good, isn't it? Like, you move into this game on the weekend, and they're coming in with good away form. They've won 5 out of their 9 games away from home this season. Wimbledon not necessarily being that great, so there's always potential that this game could go either way.
yeah, definitely. This game is it could go either way. You look at
It,
Wimbledon, their home form's good, but Doncaster's away form's good.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
massive for both teams, right? It's Doncaster win, Port Vale drop points, Doncaster then jump above them. Wimbledon win, they go then up into that automatic promotion, automatic promotion places, which is good for both teams. So it's going to be a big one, and it will definitely be
yeah,
one I'm keeping my eye on. But I think lastly,
definitely.
we round off this first week of the podcast with, we're going to start doing a prediction every week. We're going to pick out a game from every weekend. We're going to do a prediction,
So
potentially a bet.
yeah,
We do not, for anybody watching, we do not condone any gambling. So please do not try and gamble at home if you're not
I do.
especially of age. Liam loves a bet every now and again, but we do try and keep it as fun and as friendly as possible. But we are going to do, and off that note, we are then going to do a bet every single week to try and win some money along with this podcast, because if we don't get many viewers, we don't get many followers, then the bet's at least something fun that we can do between ourselves. And if we do get some followers, then please do feel free to drop and like the podcast. Follow us on Instagram at football.unfiltered. Drop myself and Liam then a personal follow too. Any recommendations, do drop us a DM. We can then start talking about it. If there's any games you'd like us to go to, we are going to look potentially in the future to start doing some more gameplay vlogs, some more real life stuff as well. But to start off with, we are going to just do the Football Unfiltered podcast. So please do drop us a like. That would be much appreciated.
Yeah,
But
we're not saying we're football experts.
yeah, definitely
We're
not.
two lads that
Two football fans. One's a
support the
QPR
championship
fan.
team
Yeah.
and just love all round football. We keep a close eye on all of the English league. We love it. So this is just something we want to do as a passion. So yeah, it'd be great if you keep if you can share it, whatever, be brilliant.
We're,
But yeah,
we're,
each week we're gonna pick um out of these games team to win, lose, or draw.
And if there's any
Probably
games, also just quickly on that, if there's any games that anyone would like to see, if anyone's a fan, I mean, obviously we're not expecting it for the first few weeks, but if anyone's a massive fan of a team that would like us to touch on any league outside of the English pyramid, 100% let us know. We were more than happy. We don't just watch English football, but English football's obviously, we're both English football fans, so it kind of makes sense. But if there's a team abroad or there's a team in a lower step, we're more than happy to touch on it, and we're all for all levels of football. But Liam, over to you. What are your predictions for these games this weekend?
so. Let's do it at the same time. So who have you picked for the Man City United game?
Man City game. I went for a draw.
See, I've
I
gone for a Man City win, but I just want to stop that there. 2-0 Derby.
2-0 Derby.
2-0
Wow,
Derby. So that's very interesting for the
that is
championship, bottom
interesting
of the table.
completely, because that's opened up the door for Plymouth tomorrow. Um, being being a game behind them now with a potential to jump up above them. Admittedly, we will then lose our game in hand because they are a game behind us. But it's interesting because we can now jump out of relegation tomorrow, which is what I want. QPR
Right,
obviously being
let's
a
do
bit
these
clear,
predictions.
but yeah, over to your predictions. So City United, the Manchester derby. You went for
So
a City win.
I've gone for a City win.
I
I
went for a
can't
draw. I
see.
think 2-2.
Wow. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. I can't see.
2-1 win. I just saw
Can't
it.
really see
I
it.
took
A draw.
I took pre-season into account. Community Shield, I think it was, wasn't it, where they drew and they went to penalties and they had a big
Oh,
penalty
that was
game.
ages ago.
Yeah, but I just think it's one of those games. Both teams are going to be up to it. And you could take away both managers. You could take away all the coaching and everything that goes into a game like this. And I think it would probably be a pretty end-to-end contest. But we'll have to see.
Yeah.
We'll take that on the
Let's
board
move
next
on to the
week.
championship game.
Have you in other news? Have you got your bet building in front of you for this draw? By the way, for your results, so we can work out the odds at the end, and we can then move it forward to see what we're going to be picking at the end.
No, I can do that
No,
though.
get
I
it
can
up
do
in
that.
front of you. I think
Let
that's
me do
fair
it
for
for
the
you.
audience. So then if we do have anybody watching that is also tuning in to try and then to win some money from this pod, then maybe we can utilise that in some way as well. So I've gone for a draw,
Yeah, let me do that
which
for
is
you. So who
12.
have you got in the championship?
Oh, draw championship. We got Burnley. We got the game of Burnley versus Norwich. I've gone for a Burnley win. I just think Norwich don't necessarily have the capability to win that game away from home. No, at home. Sorry, I think Burnley might snatch it. What have you gone? Oh, hello. We've lost him.
Yeah, I've gone
What
for.
have you
Should we
got?
move on to the Norwich game?
Yeah, what have you gone for?
Burnley.
You went for Burnley as well. Yep, same here. So I've gone for a Burnley win. I think just judging off their form, the capability they have in their squad, I think that's probably an away win there. And Norwich, just like we said, we touched on earlier, their inconsistency. I don't think that Burnley game is going to be the game they're going to be going all out for.
Yeah,
And
no, I
then we
agree. I can't see that.
move down into League One. What are you saying for League One? Stevenage versus Stockport.
I'm going for a draw.
You going for a draw? That's
Yeah.
interesting. I've gone for a away win. I've gone for Stockport. I think Stockport just maybe have that edging quality over Stevenage here, but it's one of those where you never really know with the League One. It's always so up and down. But I am going to go for a Stockport away win.
Yeah, I just think Stevenage have had a fair few draws at home this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just see this maybe being a 1-1
Yeah,
1-1 affair.
I'm going to
So
go. Oh yeah, I didn't give my prediction for Burnley versus Norwich either, score wise. I'm going to go 2-0 Burnley.
I'm gonna go 3-1 Burnley.
3-1. And then Stockport, you said 1-0. I'm going to go 2-1 Stockport. I'm going pretty
Okay.
safe this week. First week on the pod, I'm going to go safe.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Moving down into League Two, the final prediction before we wrap up for the first ever episode of Football Unfiltered.
I've gone for a Wimbledon win.
You went for a Wimbledon win.
Home win for Wimbledon.
I went Doncaster. So I actually picked Doncaster out this week. I think their away form is just terrific compared to Wimbledon. But again, we'll have to see. It's one of those, isn't it? It's always an interesting game.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, you've got a chance. Let's put it that way.
What are your odds coming in at before we wrap up?
25-1.
Mine and the Manchester Derby have I think they threw me over. I'm 73.02 to 1. I think
Yeah.
I'm going to do a pound every week because obviously
Yeah, why not? Let's do
I
it.
don't be broke by the end of this. I don't think if any of my predictions are going to come in. Like I say, we're not football professionals. We just talk and chat about football. That's it. So anyway, I quit on that. We go £79.50, and that wraps up episode 1, doesn't it?
Yeah, lovely.
Anything else to touch on over the weekend before we move forward?
Nothing to talk about. We'll probably be back. We'll be back next week to
discuss
the results.
Yeah, we might be able to
predicted.
touch on the start of next week, touch on the results we've predicted for this week, and then talk about next week's fixtures as well, which sees for me a big Plymouth game. And
let's wait and find out.
Let's wait and find out, shall we?
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, it's been a pleasure. And anybody that is joining in and has listened in throughout this, we thank you very much. And we look forward to hopefully catching you next week for another episode of Football Unfiltered.